Have you ever realized how small details can hide truths powerful enough to transform an entire life? Proverbs 20 is exactly that. A map filled with divine codes that at first glance may look like simple advice, but when explored deeply, they reveal hidden wisdom capable of reshaping destinies. This is not just another chapter. It is a call to awaken both our eyes and our conscience. Here we find a mosaic of principles that touch every area of life: discipline, justice, integrity, leadership, family, youth, old age, work, and faith. It is as if God is handing us practical keys to live firmly in an unstable world. Each verse becomes a mirror that reveals our flaws, but also a window showing the path toward restoration. Proverbs 20 is not limited to warnings against drunkenness, laziness, or rushing to judge. It goes beyond. It shows that life is built through daily choices, through small actions that combined either build or destroy legacies. The wise are not ruled by circumstances, but by principles. In this chapter, we learn that faithfulness is rare, that justice is the foundation of any throne, and that true wealth is not an early inheritance, but integrity passed on from generation to generation. Each teaching acts as a brick which, when placed correctly, builds a solid life unshaken by crises or trials. Spiritually, the text points us to the very character of God: just, merciful, faithful, and true. He is the model of leadership, the source of wisdom, and the guardian of honest scales. When we align our lives with these principles, we begin to reflect His divine nature in our daily choices. At the same time, Proverbs 20 works as a warning against self-deception. A man may manipulate weights, distort testimonies, or hide behind excuses, but before God, nothing is concealed. The Lord examines the heart, and His lamp reveals hidden intentions. This calls us to live authentically before Him. Finally, this introduction is an invitation. Do not read Proverbs 20 as just another ancient text, but as a living letter from God for your journey today. Within it are secrets that can liberate, strengthen, and guide. Each premise is a step closer to a balanced, purposeful life. What lies hidden in these lines may be the key to changing your story. Before we continue, if you enjoy our videos and feel that they have blessed your life, like and comment, even if it's just an amen. This makes a huge difference for this content to reach more people and impact lives. If you are not yet subscribed, take this opportunity to subscribe, turn on notifications, and share with your loved ones. This way, YouTube will get to know you better and recommend even more videos like this to help you on your faith journey. Help spread this message of faith and hope. Each like, comment, and share strengthens this work, which we do with all our heart to build up your life. Together, we can reach even more hearts. Continuing. The book of Proverbs opens this chapter with an apparently simple warning. Wine is a mocker, strong drink is a brawler. Whoever is led astray by it is not wise. But when we look carefully, we realize the text goes beyond the literal question of alcohol. It speaks of the danger of anything that clouds our clarity, that intoxicates our mind and heart. It is the metaphor of what consumes our reason and makes us lose our sense of direction. Drunkenness here is more than overflowing cups. It is the seduction of fleeting pleasures, the quick promises of happiness that distract us from what truly matters. It may be addiction to recognition, obsession with money, or even emotional dependence in destructive relationships. Just as wine removes physical balance, these passions rob us of inner balance. The wise are those who recognize their limits before being defeated by them. Wisdom calls us to realize that it is not the thing itself, but the control it exerts over us that defines whether it will be a blessing or a prison. Drinking socially may not destroy, but if alcohol rules, it enslaves. In the same way, money can be a wonderful tool, but when it becomes a master, it enslaves the soul. The text exposes that the greatest loss is not material but mental. the loss of discernment that distinguishes paths of life and death. Here, the spiritual mentor teaches us not to be overcome by anything that robs us of self-control. Living drunk is not only stumbling through the streets, but also living deceived by the promises of the world. It is trusting illusions that never deliver what they promise. Therefore, true wisdom is to cultivate a sober mind, one that cannot be manipulated by fleeting emotions or disordered desires. In practice, the text invites us to identify our own inner strong drinks. What things are dominating us? Could it be the phone that steals hours of purpose? Consumerism that drowns us in debt? Or pride that intoxicates our perception and makes us believe we are greater than we are? Everyone has their own cup, and the wise learn to say, enough. This metaphor also points to the power of clarity. A sober man sees paths that a drunkard never will. Clarity is what allows us to plan, build, and decide firmly. The wine of life promises to make us forget problems, but sobriety teaches us to solve them with maturity. A clear mind is a treasure that cannot be traded for fleeting pleasures. Therefore, the lesson of Proverbs 21 is not just a moral warning, but a principle of life. Do not surrender your mind to anything that robs your vision. Do not allow momentary pleasures to mock your discipline and laugh at your future. Spiritual sobriety is the key that keeps us firm, alert, and prepared. He who rules himself is greater than he who conquers a city. True freedom begins when you learn not to be overcome by what the world offers. Imagine the roar of a lion echoing in the darkness. It is impossible to ignore, for it carries with it the threat of destruction. This is how the Bible compares the fury of a king, showing how the power of authority can put the lives of those under his rule at risk. The metaphor is not only political but also spiritual, because every human being faces kings in different forms: bosses, leaders, social systems, or even invisible pressures roaring against us. Human vulnerability before authorities is a reality that transcends generations. In the days of Proverbs, a king's single word could cost someone everything: land, freedom, even life itself. Today, although we no longer live under absolute monarchs, we still face powers that decide destinies: governments, corporations, social influences. Biblical wisdom invites us to recognize that we are not invincible, and that discernment is necessary to survive hostile environments. More than fearing the roar, the wise learn to respond intelligently. A king's wrath may be provoked by imprudence, poorly chosen words, or actions that generate mistrust. The strategy, therefore, is not to confront blindly, but to know when to speak and when to remain silent. It is not cowardice, but prudence. Even Jesus before Pilate chose silence as a weapon of wisdom. Vulnerability also reveals our need for humility. Many stumble because they underestimate the power of authorities or believe they can defy systems without preparation. The proverb teaches that recognizing limits does not diminish dignity. On the contrary, it increases one's ability to survive and thrive. It is the art of walking among lions without losing essence. In practical life, we all face figures that roar. It may be an authoritarian boss, an unjust judge, or even a merciless financial system. The secret is not to surrender to fear, but to develop strategic vision. The wise position themselves with respect, avoid unnecessary provocations, and use discernment to turn risks into opportunities. The roar may be loud, but it does not need to define your path. There is also a spiritual lesson. The roar of an earthly king reminds us of the contrast with the King of Kings. While human rulers may be unjust and furious, God governs with perfect justice and truth. The text calls us not to place absolute trust in men, but in God, who has the power to silence the roar and open doors, even when everything seems shut. Thus, Proverbs 20 calls us to live balanced before authorities, neither paralyzing fear nor reckless boldness. Wisdom is to act as one who understands that the roar of a lion is real but not absolute. If we discern moments, respect limits, and trust God, no human roar will be able to destroy us. The secret is to live under the protection of the true King. There is a silent strength that few perceive, the courage not to fight. In a world that celebrates those who win arguments, shout louder, or impose themselves by force, Proverbs surprises us by declaring that true honor lies in avoiding strife. This teaching overturns human logic because it suggests that glory is not in fighting, but in knowing when to step away. Strategic silence can be more powerful than 1,000 words spoken in anger. Wisdom here is not about being passive, but about choosing battles that truly matter. One who involves himself in every argument loses energy, time, and purpose. Life is too short to waste strength in fights that add nothing. The biblical text reveals that withdrawing from unnecessary conflicts is the mark of the strong, not the weak. It is proof of spiritual and emotional maturity. Avoiding strife does not mean fleeing from responsibility, but discerning what truly deserves confrontation. There are moments when silence is wiser than any response. Jesus himself, before false accusations, remained silent, showing that his mission did not depend on human justification. He teaches us that true power is knowing that we do not need to prove ourselves to anyone. In practice, this leads us to reflect: how often do we engage in useless debates? Social media is full of people spending hours defending opinions without any result. Families are destroyed because no one gives up being right. Marriages wear out because each wants the last word. The proverb invites us to ask, is it worth it? Or does honor lie in preserving peace? The impact of this teaching is profound. Those who know how to avoid strife build bridges instead of walls. They become peacemakers, inspiring trust and respect. On the other hand, those who love quarrels lose credibility and sow distrust. Wisdom is recognizing that the greatest victories are achieved through peace, not in battlefields. There is also a spiritual aspect here. The enemy wants to trap us in endless arguments to drain our spiritual energy. He knows that when we waste our strength in strife, we stop investing in what truly transforms lives. The wise, however, understand that their mission is greater than winning arguments. They guard their hearts and protect their vision. Therefore, avoiding strife is not a sign of weakness, but of self-mastery. Honor does not lie in raising one's voice, but in choosing peace as the higher path. Whoever learns this secret experiences freedom and discovers that he does not need to win every battle, only the ones that truly define destiny. The greatest victor is not the one who defeats others, but the one who conquers himself. Winter always comes, whether we are prepared or not. This is the backdrop of the proverb that says, "The sluggard will not plow by reason of the cold. Therefore he shall beg in harvest and have nothing." The wisdom here is clear. Those who hide behind excuses will eventually reap emptiness. The cold symbolizes difficulties that keep the negligent from effort, but also exposes the difference between the wise and the foolish. Laziness is not merely inactivity, but the art of creating convincing excuses not to act. Winter represents discomfort, extra effort, and environmental resistance. The sluggard focuses on the obstacle, while the diligent focus on the future harvest. The text teaches us that success does not depend on perfect circumstances, but on the courage to act amidst adversity. This proverb also denounces the short-sightedness of the sluggard. He lives only in the present, prioritizing immediate comfort at the expense of the future. He avoids today's cold, but faces tomorrow's hunger. Procrastination always charges a higher price than the initial effort. Those who do not sow in the proper time will never have anything to reap in abundance. In spiritual terms, winter can be seen as times of trial. These are the difficult days that test our faith and discipline. Those who give up praying, seeking, or dedicating themselves because of life's resistance miss the chance to reap spiritual fruit later. The text warns us that faith also requires sowing in cold seasons so that the harvest may come in due time. In practical life, this principle applies to everything: studies, finances, relationships. The young person who does not sow academic discipline does not reap opportunities in the future. The one who does not sow financial prudence reaps debt. The spouse who does not invest love in difficult times will not reap companionship in old age. Laziness always produces scarcity, but winter also carries a promise. Those who endure the cold will later reap the warmth of abundance. Effort in difficult times guarantees stability in seasons of plenty. Life is cyclical, and ignoring that is to forfeit one's harvest. The wise learn to work even when conditions are unfavorable, because they know their seed will never be in vain. The invitation of Proverbs 20 is clear. Do not wait for perfect conditions to act. Face the winter, prepare when no one is watching, and the future will reward you. Those who sow despite the cold prove that their vision is greater than their fear. And when harvest time arrives, while many beg, you will eat of the abundance built in days of resistance. That is the difference between living on excuses and living on fruit. There are treasures not found on the surface, but hidden in the depths. Proverbs 20 tells us, "Counsel in the heart of man is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out." This metaphor is powerful. Counsel is not always obvious, it must be drawn out. Wisdom is not found in ready answers, but in deep dives into soul and spirit. Every person carries within themselves an ocean of experiences, perceptions, and stories. Yet most never learn to dive into these waters to draw pearls of wisdom. Hurry prevents us from truly listening, and pride makes us incapable of asking. The text challenges us to cultivate the art of listening, not just with ears, but with a heart attentive to meaning. The wise are those who know how to dig deep for answers. They understand that it is not enough to ask questions. One must also listen beyond words. Often true counsel is disguised in simplicity, waiting for someone with enough discernment to recognize it. It is like finding gold hidden within common soil. It requires patience, but it is worth it. This principle also teaches us to look within ourselves. How many answers has God already placed in our hearts, but we have not accessed them because we failed to dive into prayer, meditation, or reflection? Modern life steals our silence, and without silence there is no depth. The proverb points out that counsel is there, but only the wise are brave enough to seek it. In human relationships, this teaching changes everything. How often do we disregard the opinion of someone simpler, believing only the learned can teach us? Yet wisdom often comes from where we least expect it. The humble may bring a word capable of transforming destinies, but only the attentive will perceive that hidden treasure in deep waters. There is also a spiritual aspect. The Holy Spirit is the counselor par excellence, but he does not shout. His words are like deep waters, requiring us to dive into intimacy with him. It is not about noise, but depth. Those content with the surface will never know the secrets of God. Therefore, Proverbs 20 reminds us that the best counsel is not in the rush of crowds, but in the depth of hearts. Be attentive, learn to listen, and value what many despise. Seek with understanding, dive without fear, and you will discover that deep waters hide wisdom capable of changing your life. Those who dig deep find pearls unseen by others. In a world full of empty promises, faithfulness becomes a jewel almost extinct. Proverbs 20 declares, "Most men will proclaim everyone his own goodness, but a faithful man who can find?" This question echoes as a challenge, revealing the scarcity of true loyalty. It is not hard to find people who speak of themselves, but it is rare to find those whose lives confirm what they say. Faithfulness here is not merely staying by someone's side, but maintaining consistency of character even when no one is watching. Many maintain an image in public, but fail in private. The proverb denounces this contradiction, reminding us that words may impress, but it is actions that reveal who we truly are. This principle applies to all areas of life. In marriage, faithfulness goes beyond exclusivity. It is being present in love, patience, and daily commitment. In business, Faithfulness is not just honoring contracts, but maintaining integrity when opportunities to exploit others arise. In friendship, it is staying when everyone else has left. The rarity of faithfulness reveals its immeasurable value. In times when betrayal, infidelity, and corruption multiply, finding someone truly trustworthy is like finding a pearl hidden in the sand. Wisdom here is twofold, not only being faithful, but also surrounding oneself with people of such character. Spiritually, this proverb points to covenant with God. He never fails, but we often waver. The faithfulness he expects is not perfection, but firm commitment to walk with him even when the path is hard. It is in the hidden places of daily life that true faithfulness is proven, not only in grand moments of worship or emotion. The great truth is that anyone can speak of loyalty, but only time reveals who is truly faithful. Life exposes masks, and the heat of trials shows who remains and who abandons. A faithful man does not need to proclaim himself, because his constancy speaks louder than any speech. Thus, Proverbs 20 challenges us to be that rarity. Instead of proclaiming goodness, live faithfulness. Be the one others can trust, even when everything is at stake. This is the mark that builds trust, honor, and legacy. The faithful are not remembered for their words, but for the promises they kept until the end. True inheritance is not measured in wealth, but in character. Proverbs 20 reminds us, "The just man walketh in his integrity. His children are blessed after him." Here lies a powerful principle. It is not the possessions that sustain a family, but the example of the just. Integrity is the invisible foundation that ensures security and prosperity for generations. The integrity of the just functions as a shield, protecting his descendants. When a father or mother chooses righteousness, they open paths of trust and stability for their children. They may not inherit material riches, but they inherit values that empower them to build their future. This is the inheritance that never fails, even in times of crisis or scarcity. This truth also reveals the impact of injustice. When someone lives without character, they leave deep scars of destruction in their descendants. Children inherit not only property, but also example. The father who lies teaches lying, the corrupt teaches corruption. Thus, Proverbs reveals that righteousness is not only a personal choice, but a collective legacy. Integrity as the family foundation generates trust. Children learn to honor, respect, and trust because they see and practice what it means to live in truth. The just do not need long sermons. Their lives are the greatest message. They teach by example, and that teaching lives on even after they are gone. Spiritually, this premise reinforces that we are called to be pillars in God's house. When a leader lives in righteousness, his community flourishes. When a believer maintains integrity, he strengthens not only his family, but also the generation watching him. Personal righteousness becomes collective impact. This proverb also reminds us that prosperity without integrity is fragile. Many inherit fortunes, but cannot sustain them because they never received solid values. Others inherit only a clean name and a righteous example, yet build much more than fleeting riches. The just leave not only what they have, but who they are. Therefore, our greatest responsibility is to live with integrity before God and men. This decision not only blesses our lives, but also the future of our children and grandchildren. The just are like deep roots that sustain the family tree for generations. And that legacy is the true inheritance that transcends time. No throne lasts forever if built upon injustice. Proverbs 20 declares, "A throne is established by justice." This phrase reveals a timeless principle. Every government, leadership, or authority remains only if justice is its foundation. Any power built on oppression, corruption, or lies will eventually crumble. Justice is the invisible cement that keeps the throne standing. This proverb does not speak only of kings, but of all forms of leadership. A home, for example, is a throne. If parents rule without justice, the family breaks. A company is also a throne. If a leader favors some over others, the organization collapses. Even friendship has a throne structure because it relies on trust, and trust exists only where justice prevails. Wisdom here is clear. Power is not sustained by force or charisma alone. Many leaders win followers, but few remain because they lack integrity. Justice is the foundation that upholds trust. Without it, any structure of power is only an illusion soon to collapse. Spiritually, this proverb points to God's throne. Unlike men, the Lord rules with absolute justice. He does not corrupt, does not show partiality, and does not change according to convenience. His throne is unshakable because his justice is eternal. This teaches us that every human authority is legitimate only when it reflects, even partially, that divine character. In practical life, this teaching is a call to responsibility. If you hold any position of influence, as a parent, teacher, boss, or spiritual leader, you must ask, is my throne established in justice or convenience? Am I building trust or corroding the foundation of what I lead? This reflection separates passing leaders from those immortalized in history. Justice also protects the leader from himself. Without this foundation, power turns into tyranny. But when justice is cultivated, power becomes service. The throne ceases to be a symbol of oppression and becomes a source of protection for those under authority. Therefore, Proverbs 20 reminds us that the greatness of a throne lies not in its height, but in the firmness of its foundation. Those who rule with justice build something that lasts. Those who rule with corruption prepare their own fall. The secret of permanence is simple yet profound. A throne endures only when justice is its base. What seems small in human eyes is enormous before God. Proverbs 20 condemns false weights, showing that even a slight alteration of balance is abomination. This simple image delivers a powerful denunciation. Injustice rarely begins with great acts of corruption, but with small distortions accepted as normal. 1 gram stolen today paves the way for tons of injustice tomorrow. The false weight is not only commercial, but a metaphor for life. How many adjust their weights to gain advantage in relationships, business, or even faith? Using different measures for ourselves and for others is a subtle form of corruption. The proverb exposes human hypocrisy. We condemn great crimes, but tolerate small dishonesties. This teaching calls us to invisible integrity. God sees what no one else sees, and what the world calls detail is, for him, a matter of justice. The false balance symbolizes any attitude that manipulates truth for personal benefit. It could be a poorly explained contract, a promise not fulfilled, or even a harmless lie. All of these are unequal weights. In practical life, this means our credibility depends on faithfulness in small acts. If someone lies in details, how can they be trusted in great matters? If they cheat in small sums, how can they be believed in great business? True justice begins with the smallest detail because it is there that character is proven. Spiritually, the false balance reminds us that God cannot be deceived. He weighs hearts and intentions, and his justice cannot be manipulated. Men may deceive courts, contracts, even friends, but never the Lord who examines the soul. That is why wisdom is living with honest weights before him, even when no one is watching. This principle also exposes the root of social corruption. A society that tolerates small fraud inevitably reaps great crises. Collective transformation begins when individuals decide to use equal weights in daily life. Justice is not built only in courts, but in every business transaction done with honesty. Therefore, Proverbs 20 challenges us to abandon every unequal weight, however small it may seem. Integrity is not optional. It is the basis of trust. The truly righteous do not seek advantage at the expense of others, but honor truth in every detail. In the end, it is not great speeches that define a man, but invisible faithfulness in the balances of life. Youth is like an intense fire. It can illuminate or burn. Proverbs 20 says, The glory of young men is their strength. It points to vitality, energy, and boldness that characterize this stage of life. At the same time, the text suggests that this strength must be channeled, for power without direction becomes destruction. Strength is a divine gift, but it must be managed wisely. The young possess physical vigor, quick minds, and natural courage to take risks. This is a blessing, but also a danger. Many waste that energy on foolish paths, seeking only fleeting pleasures. The glory of youth is not in spending strength recklessly, but in using it to build something lasting. A strong body and agile mind must serve purposes greater than enjoying the moment. Wisdom is clear. Strength without discipline is only violence. Just as a river without banks causes floods, youthful energy without limits creates chaos. The wise young person is the one who learns early to master impulses, channeling strength into work, service, and growth. True glory is not merely possessing vigor, but directing it toward eternal purposes. Spiritually, this proverb reminds us that God often calls the young for great missions. Joseph was sold young and became governor. David faced Goliath as a youth. Jeremiah was called a prophet while still young. All had strength, but what made them great was how they placed that strength in service to the Lord. In practical life, this means using youth to sow. It is a time for studying, working, learning, serving, and planting values that will yield future harvests. The young who use their strength to build solid foundations will live old age with honor. Those who waste their energy on futile paths will reap regret. This principle also teaches the older generations something. Youth must be guided, not repressed. Many young people are lost because no one helped them channel their energy. Strength without direction needs the wisdom of experience to find meaning. When generations unite, youth becomes the engine and maturity the rudder. Therefore, the glory of youth is strength, but wisdom lies in knowing how to use it. Physical vigor and natural boldness are gifts that can change destinies if well managed. Youth is the time to fight for dreams, to build, to risk with purpose. But only those who unite strength and wisdom transform energy into legacy. Time carves wisdom into the lines of the face. And Proverbs 20 declares, "The beauty of old men is the gray head." In a culture that worships youth, this teaching rescues the dignity of aging. White hair here is not a symbol of decay, but of victory. It represents someone who has survived seasons, gathered experiences, and now carries a crown of honor. The crown of gray hair is not merely chronological. Age alone does not guarantee wisdom. It is necessary to live with integrity, learning through trials and victories. Many grow old but do not mature. This proverb points to the value of those who truly use years to transform life into a testimony, an example to be followed. In practical life, this means valuing the elderly as bearers of treasures. They carry stories, lessons, and warnings that no book can record with the same depth. Ignoring them is to despise a library of experiences freely offered. A generation that does not honor its elders condemns itself to repeat the same mistakes. Spiritually, the white head is the glory of one who walked with God for many years. It represents those who remained faithful despite adversity, whose perseverance became a testimony of divine grace. Their presence strengthens the community, for they embody the truth that wisdom is proven over time. The proverb also challenges the younger generation. Instead of despising gray hair, they must draw near to listen. Youth brings strength, but maturity brings direction. Together, they create a powerful balance, energy that is not wasted and experience that does not stagnate. When generations unite, society becomes stronger. This teaching denounces cultures that marginalize the elderly. A society that hides its elders in corners loses its roots and cuts off its identity. On the other hand, a culture that honors gray hair builds security for its future, for it learns from those who have already lived. Thus, Proverbs 20 teaches us that white hair is not shame, but crown. Those who respect the age discover treasures hidden in stories, gestures, and silences. Those who grow old with dignity reap honor, and those who honor them reap wisdom. True beauty is not in youthful vigor, but in the crown of years well lived. Inside every human being burns a flame, invisible to the naked eye. Proverbs 20 reveals, "The spirit of man is the candle of the Lord, searching all the inward parts of the belly." This image is powerful. God places a lamp within us, and by it he examines even our hidden corners. No secret escapes his light. This lamp is not physical, but spiritual. It is conscience illuminated by the breath of God, capable of exposing intentions, desires, and motivations. Many try to hide behind appearances, but the divine light always reveals what lies beneath. The proverb shows that man may deceive others, but never the one who sees the heart. Spiritually, this truth is both comfort and warning. It comforts because God knows us fully, even when others misunderstand us. It warns because he also sees what we would rather hide. His lamp spares nothing. It burns away masks and calls us to authentic living. Integrity is born from awareness that nothing is hidden from his gaze. This lamp also points to the role of the Holy Spirit. He illuminates our conscience, showing us what needs to be corrected. He's not a light that humiliates, but one that heals. Where his light enters, confusion becomes clarity, and darkness turns into revelation. Those who allow themselves to be illuminated find direction and peace. In practical life, this means cultivating sincerity. Living with masks may bring temporary advantages, but it creates an unbearable prison. Those who accept the light of God live freely because they do not fear exposure. The greatest liberation is knowing that God sees everything and still loves, but also calls to transformation. The lamp within us also functions as a guide. Many seek direction externally, but forget that the Spirit speaks internally. Silence and prayer sharpen our perception of this divine voice. Those who listen to the inner lamp walk more securely, because they are guided by God himself. Thus, Proverbs 20 reminds us that we are never truly in darkness. Within us burns a flame that examines, reveals, and directs. Our responsibility is not to extinguish it with sin, but to cultivate it with obedience. The candle of the Lord is our greatest treasure, for it ensures that even in the darkest night we walk illuminated by his light. Every true leader is also a judge. Proverbs 20 says, "A king that sitteth in the throne of judgment scattereth away all evil with his eyes." This imagery shows a ruler who discerns with such clarity that evil cannot withstand his gaze. Authority is not merely a title. It is the ability to discern and eliminate what threatens the community. The king who winnows evil represents more than political power. He symbolizes leaders capable of perceiving corruption, even in the smallest details. His eyes do not tolerate half-truths or masked intentions. He knows that allowing evil to remain is opening the door to greater destruction. Justice begins in the king's perception. Spiritually, this proverb reflects the justice of God. Before his throne, nothing impure can stand. His eyes are like fire, burning away all evil. Unlike human judges, he cannot be deceived, bribed, or manipulated. His gaze separates light from darkness, truth from lies in an instant. In practical life, this principle teaches us that leaders must cultivate discernment. A boss, teacher, or parent who cannot perceive injustice soon sees chaos multiply under their authority. Leadership is not only about guiding, but about protecting. It is the responsibility to guard the environment from corrupting influences. The king's eyes also represent vigilance. A distracted leader is a vulnerable leader. Evil thrives where there is negligence, but where eyes are attentive, injustice finds no space. Proverbs warns us that vigilance is not paranoia, but wisdom that prevents rot from spreading. This teaching also calls us to be that kind of leader in our own spheres. We may not sit on thrones, but we have influence over homes, teams, and friendships. If we close our eyes to evil, it grows. But if we confront it with clarity, we protect what is entrusted to us. Thus, Proverbs 20 elevates leadership to its true dimension. It is not privilege, but responsibility. The king who winnows evil protects his people. The believer who discerns evil protects his soul. The true throne is sustained by eyes that see and act. This is the gaze that reflects the justice of God himself. A throne is not preserved by force, but by balance. Proverbs 20 reveals, mercy and truth preserve the king, and his throne is upholden by mercy. Here lies a paradox of leadership. Power survives not by fear or violence, but by combining compassion with truth. Mercy without truth becomes weakness. Truth without mercy becomes tyranny. Mercy is the hand that embraces. Truth is the hand that corrects. Together, they form the perfect government. The king who rules with only one hand loses balance. Too much mercy generates permissiveness. Too much truth generates oppression. The proverb teaches that the throne stands firm only when both hands work together. Spiritually, this points to God's own character. He's perfect in truth, never corrupting justice, yet also infinite in mercy, never closing the door to forgiveness. The cross of Christ is the greatest demonstration of this balance. Justice demanded payment, and mercy provided redemption. There, mercy and truth kissed. In practical leadership, this means knowing when to forgive and when to correct. Parents who only forgive spoil children. Those who only punish crush them. Bosses who are only strict generate fear. Those who are only merciful produce irresponsibility. The wisdom is in balance, where mercy corrects without destroying and truth guides without crushing. Mercy and truth also preserve personal integrity. In our relationships, if we apply only truth, we will lose people. If we apply only mercy, we will lose principles. The wise learn to walk on this narrow path where both values coexist, producing respect and love simultaneously. The throne upheld by mercy is a promise of stability. Fear may sustain power for a time, but only mercy keeps it over time. People may obey tyrants, but they honor leaders who unite justice with compassion. That honor is what truly upholds authority. Thus, Proverbs 20 teaches us that the true guardian of authority is not force, but balance. Mercy and truth together build thrones that last, families that stand, and societies that flourish. Whoever learns to unite them reflects the very heart of God in leadership. Sleep may seem harmless, but when loved excessively, it becomes a thief. Proverbs 20 warns, love not sleep, lest thou come to poverty. Open thine eyes, and thou shalt be satisfied with bread. Here, sleep is more than rest. It symbolizes apathy and lack of discipline. The text reminds us that those who surrender to inertia reap scarcity. The love of sleep is attachment to comfort. It is not wrong to rest. Rest is divine, but when rest becomes escape from responsibility, it turns into prison. Those who idolize the pillow neglect opportunities. While their eyes remain closed, opportunities pass by. The proverb teaches that bread is given to those who open their eyes and act. Spiritually, sleep symbolizes spiritual lethargy. Many are awake in body but asleep in soul. They ignore God's call, the urgency of the times, and the need to seek His presence. The result is poverty of faith, of vision, and of fruit. Awakening spiritually is opening the eyes to God's move and not wasting the season of harvest. In practical life, open eyes represent initiative. It is the ability to perceive opportunities and act when others hesitate. The diligent reap because they act. The slothful beg because they wait for perfect circumstances that never come. Bread belongs to those who awaken. This proverb also exposes how poverty is not only material, but often the fruit of indiscipline. Talented people remain poor because they never woke up to responsibility. Geniuses waste their gifts because they preferred the comfort of the bed to the discipline of work. The love of sleep robs destinies. The wise, however, learn to use rest correctly. Sleep restores, but it must never dominate. The secret is to balance rest with diligence, silence with action, and night with day. The blessing is not for those who love sleep, but for those who open their eyes to life. Thus, Proverbs 20 calls us to awaken, to stop loving sleep and start loving opportunities. Bread is for the vigilant, not the negligent. Abundance is for those who dare to rise before the world wakes. Whoever wants to prosper must first open his eyes. This is the wisdom that turns discipline into abundance. A tempered scale does not deceive just one person. It corrupts an entire society. Proverbs 20 declares, "Divers weights are an abomination unto the Lord, and a false balance is not good." This simple image shows how small acts of corruption turn into systemic injustices. God abhors these practices because they hurt not only individuals, but also the very fabric of social trust. False weights symbolize systems that exploit the vulnerable. It may be a dishonest merchant at a marketplace, but also a leader who bends laws for personal gain. It is the company that abuses workers or the spiritual leader who manipulates faith for profit. Each false balance is not just fraud. It is a betrayal of dignity and justice. Wisdom here teaches that justice begins in details. Corruption rarely starts big. It starts with small distortions tolerated in silence. A false gram today becomes a ton tomorrow. When dishonesty becomes normalized, society decays. The false weight is not only commercial but moral, an invisible rot that spreads through communities. Spiritually, this reveals God's deep connection with justice. He is the God of balance, truth, and transparency. To manipulate weights is to insult his very character. That is why the text calls such acts abomination. It is not a small error. It is rebellion against the divine order of fairness. In daily life, this principle challenges us. Do we use honest weights in our relationships? Are we transparent in business, faithful in promises, and true in speech? Or do we adjust the scales according to our advantage? Integrity is tested not in public speeches, but in hidden transactions. This proverb also denounces modern forms of corruption. When prices are manipulated, when exploitation becomes normal, or when inequality is maintained by dishonest systems, we are living in a marketplace of false balances. And God, who defends the oppressed, will not remain silent. His justice always comes. Therefore, Proverbs 20 teaches us that every false weight destroys trust. Justice is not optional. It is sacred. Whoever uses honest measures reflects God's character and builds lasting trust. Whoever tampers with balances may prosper temporarily, but will eventually face divine judgment. The Lord delights only in justice, for only justice sustains societies and hearts. Haste is the enemy of justice. Proverbs 20 warns, "He that hasteth with his words shall not prosper, and he that is hasty of spirit exalteth folly." Quick judgments often create false testimonies, destroying lives in the process. The text reveals that it is not only lies that cause injustice, but also the reckless speed of words. Human tendency leans toward immediate opinions. A gesture misinterpreted, a rumor believed, or a story half-heard can ruin relationships and reputations. Proverbs teaches that the wise investigate while the fool rushes. Justice requires patience, not impulse. Spiritually, this truth calls us to humility. Only God judges perfectly, for only He sees hearts and intentions. Our vision is partial and fragmentary. When we judge in haste, we risk placing ourselves in God's position, committing serious injustice. The Bible reminds us to listen, discern, and wait before speaking. In practical life, this principle is vital. In families, many conflicts arise from hasty words. In workplaces, reputations are destroyed by rumors passed along without verification. On social media, quick judgments spread like fire, often based on distortions. The proverb calls us to stop, listen, and weigh before declaring. The wise know that credibility depends on calm analysis. People who rush to judgment lose trust, while those who weigh matters carefully are sought out for advice. The difference between folly and wisdom often lies in the speed of one's words. Silence can save, while haste can destroy. This proverb also reminds us that false testimony is not only intentional lies, but also premature conclusions. To speak without knowledge is to exalt folly. Each word carries power. Therefore, it must be handled with responsibility. Thus, Proverbs 20 teaches that patience in judgment is not weakness, but wisdom. The wise do not rush because they understand the weight of words. Those who judge too quickly condemn themselves to injustice. The invitation is clear: pause, discern, and only then speak. That is the path of integrity. What arrives too early may become a curse rather than a blessing. Proverbs 20 states, "An inheritance may be gotten hastily at the beginning, but the end thereof shall not be blessed." This principle reveals that prosperity without maturity is destruction in disguise. The timing of blessing matters as much as the blessing itself. A premature inheritance is wealth, power, or responsibility received without preparation. It may bring joy at first, but without wisdom, it soon turns into ruin. Many lose what was given to them because they lacked the character to sustain it. The blessing turns into burden when it arrives before the heart is ready. This proverb denounces the culture of shortcuts. Many want harvest without sowing, glory without sacrifice, position without process. But divine wisdom insists waiting is part of preparation. A fruit harvested too soon looks attractive on the outside, but is bitter within. The inheritance without maturity tastes like that fruit. In practical life, this truth is evident. Young heirs who squander fortunes, leaders who assume authority prematurely and fall into scandal, or people who achieve fame without emotional balance. These are all examples of premature inheritances. Blessings without preparation lead to collapse. Spiritually, this lesson is even deeper. Many seek spiritual gifts without discipline, authority without humility, ministry without the cross. God, however, loves too much to give prematurely. He allows the waiting to mature character so that when the inheritance arrives, it becomes blessing and not destruction. This principle calls us to patience. Receiving early may seem like advantage, but in reality, it is loss. The process of waiting strengthens, polishes, and prepares us. The wise understand that the delay of blessing is not denial, but preservation. Therefore, Proverbs 20 warns us, "Do not hurry what God has not yet completed." Inheritance in the right time builds legacies. Inheritance before the time destroys lives. True blessing is not having early, but having when the heart is prepared to sustain. A single lie can destroy what took years to build. Proverbs 20 declares, "A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall perish." This principle reveals the devastating power of false testimony. It may seem small, but before God it is abomination, because it wounds truth and justice. False testimony is not only perjury in a court. It includes distortions, rumors, and silences that manipulate truth. A rumor whispered can ruin a family. A lie spread can destroy a career. Proverbs leaves no doubt. The liar will not escape, for God himself rises against false testimony. This truth highlights the seriousness of words. Many treat lies as light, but before the Lord, they are poison. Every falsehood corrodes not only the victim, but also the soul of the liar. Those who live by deceit build their own destruction. Spiritually, lying aligns with the enemy, for Satan is the father of lies. Each false testimony opens space for his influence. The wise understand that their mouths must be instruments of life, never of destruction. To lie is to lend the tongue to darkness. In practical life, this means avoiding both lies and careless sharing of information. Repeating without verifying is to participate in false testimony. Passing along a rumor makes us complicit in injustice. Integrity requires words tested by truth. The promise in this proverb is that truth always prevails. Falsehood may prosper for a time, but it cannot last. Lies are like dry grass. They burn quickly, but leave nothing. Truth, however, is eternal flame. Thus, Proverbs 20 calls us to radical commitment to truth. Even when it costs us, honesty is the path of life. Those who reject false testimony not only protect others, but also themselves. Words of truth build, but lies destroy. Every man must choose his side. The secret of stability is not human strength, but the fear of the Lord. Proverbs 20 closes with this truth: reverence for God is what anchors life in unshakable firmness. This fear is not paralyzing terror, but profound respect for His holiness and sovereignty. It is the recognition that every step is lived under His gaze. The fear of the Lord acts as an inner compass. It regulates decisions, words, and actions. Those who fear Him pause before speaking, reflect before judging, and measure before acting. This awareness generates security, for it creates healthy limits against temptations and errors. Different from human fear, which enslaves, the fear of the Lord liberates. It does not remove joy, but protects from foolishness that would destroy it. To walk in this fear is to walk in safety, as on a lit path where no step is taken blindly. The one who fears God rests, for he knows he is under divine protection. In daily life, this is seen in hidden choices. It is honesty in secret, integrity without applause, faithfulness without reward. The fear of the Lord transforms ordinary acts into testimonies of character. It is living in coherence between what is preached and what is practiced. Spiritually, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. It opens the door to discernment, for only the humble seek divine counsel. Those who live without fear walk blindly. Those who live in reverence walk securely. This fear is the foundation of every lasting wisdom. This teaching reminds us that firmness does not depend on circumstances, but on convictions. The man who fears the Lord does not collapse with crises, nor live enslaved by human approval. His foundation is immovable because it is built on reverence for the eternal God. Thus, Proverbs 20 concludes with a call: build your life on the fear of the Lord. This is the axis that sustains integrity, abundance, and peace. Those who walk in reverence not only live firmly, but also leave a legacy. Fear of God is not weakness, but the true strength that sustains all wisdom. As Proverbs 20 comes to a close, a truth shines like a lighthouse. There is no firmness outside the fear of the Lord. All the teachings we explored converge toward this central reality. The righteous, the faithful, the wise, the man of integrity, all of them draw their strength not from themselves, but from God. He is the foundation sustaining every choice, decision, and victory. This chapter has taught us that life is not built on grand events alone, but on small, daily actions. A fair weight, a truthful word, the wisdom to avoid quarrels, the discipline to sow in winter. These are the details that construct a strong future. Wisdom shows us that greatness lies not in extraordinary feats, but in ordinary faithfulness. We also learn that every stage of life has its beauty, the vigor of youth and the crown of old age. Together they reveal God's design for each season of life. The young are called to channel their strength with wisdom, while the elders transmit experience as legacy. When generations walk together, society finds balance and strength. The text highlights the seriousness of integrity. God despises dishonest scales, false weights, and lying witnesses. These acts, though seemingly small, erode families, businesses, and entire nations. The message is clear. Faithfulness in details is not optional. It is the very test of character. Spiritually, we were reminded that the breath of the Lord is the lamp within us. His Spirit examines, reveals, and guides. Ignoring that inner light condemns us to darkness, but following it ensures clarity, direction, and peace. God has given each of us an inner flame. Only the wise learn to walk by it. We also saw that true wealth is not an inheritance received prematurely, but a legacy of justice passed down. The righteous leave behind not just material possessions, but an example of integrity that blesses their children and grandchildren. This is the inheritance that never loses its value. Therefore, Proverbs 20 leaves us with an uncompromising call: awaken to wisdom, embrace integrity, and walk in the fear of the Lord. Here lies the secret to firmness in unstable times, abundance in seasons of scarcity, and peace amid strife. Those who live by these principles do more than survive. They flourish and leave behind an eternal legacy.